The Labyrinth is a collaboration between many different creative minds. Namely, of course, Jim Henson and Wendy and Brian Froud, but also the writing team that worked on the several versions the screenplay went through until it reached the one we know and love today. Aside from Terry Jones, who is typically credited with the writing, Laura Phillips, Dennis Lee, Elaine May, and George Lucas were involved in the writing process. Labyrinth is part of a lineup of weird but loved fantasy adventure films from the 80s, joining the ranks of Willow, Dark Crystal, Clash of the Titans, and The Neverending Story. Originally, the film flopped, but today it has reached a cult status and can rightfully claim its place in modern 80s media nostalgia. However, when I look up the film online or watch video essays about it, one glaring detail keeps coming up that I personally cannot ignore. So many people seem to misunderstand the film. Too many people look at Sarah and Jareth and somehow see a genuine love story. Too many people watch the film and take tropes for granted that they assume will apply to Labyrinth as well, when they don't. The question is, what is it that is fascinating about the Labyrinth, and why do people misinterpret it to an extent that ideas such as Labyrinth is secretly about masturbation, yes, that is a real video essay, or the Sarah-Jareth ship are widely accepted as correct and canon? The truth is, I think anyway, that many people watch Labyrinth without seeing what is happening in it. They see David Bowie, whom they perceive as attractive and desirable. They see a young girl as a protagonist and what on the surface seems like a very standard fairy tale movie, and they already made up their mind that this is an adventure with romantic subplot and stop thinking and analyzing from that point on. This sounds harsh, but considering the amount of people that will spread incorrect pseudo-information about the production of Labyrinth that puts David Bowie into a favorable light and paints Jim Henson as someone who would purposefully write a romantic story between a 15-year-old character and a 100-year-old goblin, the same Jim Henson who was heavily involved in the creation of Sesame Street, for example, I have to assume that some people watch this movie with their eyes closed. Either that, or they take some things for granted. The first view we get of Sarah is like out of a fantasy realm, until she realizes she's late and hikes up her skirts, revealing blue jeans underneath, and runs home through an obviously modern town, where after a fight with her stepmother, she dramatically throws herself onto her bed in a room that is essentially a plushy and toy-filled shrine to her childhood. Sarah is no fantasy heroine, no princess. She's a spoiled teenager in the height of puberty, whose father remarried and whose mother, an actress, ran off with her attractive co-star. Sarah's room tells us everything we need to know about her and about the story to come. The camera pans over her belongings, the little castle on a cloud she has built for herself. We see a wooden labyrinth game, a bookend with a dwarf, a music box with a sparkling princess, a handmade plush animal, a large figurine of a fantasy character holding a crystal sphere and swinging his cloak. Photos of baby Toby, Sarah's father, and her stepmother are absent. This is Sarah's safe space, her fortress, where she can pretend everything is the way she wishes it was. Without a runaway mother, without an annoying baby brother. Sarah is caught between hanging onto her childhood, when everything felt safe and unshakable and she had no responsibilities, and wanting to be viewed as an equal by the adults in her life. She wants to be seen as a grown-up, but she doesn't act like it. She doesn't feel ready to go on dates, as is sort of expected of girls her age. She still wants to play pretend in the park. In a be careful what you wish for situation, she accidentally summons the goblins out of a story, who kidnap her baby brother. And this is how she finds herself in the role of the hero after all. Finds herself having to be responsible. She doesn't have a choice, not if she wants to save Toby. But she approaches the labyrinth realm without fear. She takes to the new magical realm like a fish takes to water, unafraid and confident. This world is one she is used to, one she fled to in the past in her imagination, and the expectations put on her as she steps into the role of the heroine feel less daunting than real-world society expectations of what growing up is supposed to mean. But even though Sarah feels comfortable in the Labyrinth realm, she does approach it with a very entitled, stubborn, and stuck-up attitude. As Hoggle says, she takes too many things for granted. And so does the audience. We all grew up with fairy tales, often cautionary ones, and if not those, then the Disney-ified versions we connect with through nostalgia. We also know our fantasy and adventure stories and how they go. Frodo takes the ring to Mordor, gets tempted, but in the end he and his friends win. Luke is taken to space by Obi-Wan, saves the princess, finds out who his father is, loses a hand, ends up saving the universe. These stories are so well known to us that, same as Sarah, we expect to know how this adventure will go. We expect it to go linearly, as every story we know already. But it doesn't. In Labyrinth, fairies are pests that bite you, the dwarf is grumpy and rude, the cute animal sends you the wrong way, there's glitter everywhere, but also cobwebs and broken tree branches. The lichen is sentient and has bright blue eyes, and roses have thorns. We see all this, but like Sarah, we still take for granted that this story will follow the pattern we expect it to. But to understand the realm of the Labyrinth, one must leave behind expectations and what they take for granted. In Sarah's case, this means she needs to abandon the idea that things work like in the real world, that walls are solid just because they appear as such, that marks drawn on the ground will remain where they were because that's how it works in the stories. In the case of the audience, this means to abandon the tropes we're used to. We cannot expect the Labyrinth to follow the formula of a fairy tale movie because this is not a fairy tale. So what does this mean in the case of Jareth? Well, obviously, Jareth is the antagonist. He is attractive but evil, and we have a habit of associating those two attributes together with the enemies to lovers trope. But Labyrinth is not a love story. Just because Jareth is attractive doesn't mean he's supposed to be viewed as a romantic option for Sarah. Quite the opposite. Him being attractive is part of the danger. The reason he is attractive is because he is part of Sarah's imagination, and Sarah is a teenage girl trying to actively figure out who she is, who she wants to be, where she stands on sexuality, and who more than anything wants to be viewed as an adult. Wants to be being the key term here. She isn't one. And Jareth is not supposed to be a romantic partner to her. He is supposed to be scary, even bordering on predatory. Brian Henson in The Ultimate Visual History of the Labyrinth says, "He is the Goblin King. He is scary. He's got my little brother. But he's also masculine. I am attracted to him, but I am a child. I wanted to be an adult. I don't want to be an adult if that's what that means." Once Jareth becomes sexual, he is dangerous. Jareth's attractiveness is meant to be taken as part of his predatory nature. He embodies both the way Sarah views adulthood that she's not ready for, and the manipulation and control she tries to fight in her real life. Jareth being beautiful is part of his allure, very Fae-like, something pretty to lure you in and make you feel as though you are safe, only to then eat you alive. Ultimately, Jareth views Sarah as a threat to his power. He rules the Labyrinth, he rules the goblins, and then this child comes along who dares to challenge him, who dares to pose a threat to his power. He is fascinated by her, but not in a romantic or even sexual way. His fascination stems out of fear and worry for his own position. If Sarah can get as far as the oubliette, how far can she go? If Sarah can survive the cleaners and the fieries, how far can she go? But more importantly to Jareth, how can he stop her from going further? So what does he do? He plays games. He manipulates. He tries everything to control Sarah and is not above drugging her and trapping her in a crystal bubble dream that is a mockery of Cinderella, if that means he can keep ruling. Jareth isn't the first ruler of the Labyrinth to do this. In the comic series Labyrinth Coronation, Jareth's mother is posed the same challenge as Sarah. 13 hours to retrieve a baby. The baby in question is Jareth. His mother, Maria, tries to get her son back, who was sold by his father to the Owl King, who in this timeline rules over the Labyrinth realm. The Owl King uses several goons, including his own son, to try and send Maria on the wrong path, to trap her, cast her out of the realm. Anything to keep her from reaching the baby in time. Jareth in the film does the same thing. To the very last line we hear from him, he is manipulative. Nothing he says is genuine. He plays on Sarah's innocence, her nervousness when it comes to growing up and sexuality. He wants power over her and over the Labyrinth realm. Jareth is controlling, and he gets a deep pleasure out of control. He controls the realm Sarah left behind. He controls the creatures that live in it. He controls Hoggle, and he controls Sarah. He uses her fantasies against her. The vision of the crystal bubble ball that he sends her to after she eats the drugged peach is directly based on a music box Sarah owns and that we see in the beginning of the film. The bubble ball is based on Sarah's fantasy, but it is under Jareth's control. It's intimidating, it's scary, it is more grown up and more sexual than Sarah is ready for. And that is, ironically, what has Sarah break through the spell put on her and escape the bubble. The best clue, aside from all the context clues of the movie, as to how controlling and manipulative Jareth is in the finale of the film. Sarah starts reciting her play, and Jareth starts rapidly going through any manipulative tactic he can think of. He is pleading, threatening, offering, fighting for the upper hand again. He paints himself the victim as well as the generous giver, and when that doesn't work, he offers Sarah her dreams, under the condition that she love him, fear him, and he'd be her slave. And again, this is him being manipulative. He doesn't want to be loved by Sarah, and someone as power-hungry as Jareth would never enslave himself to a child. He's trying to stop her from saying the phrase that will defeat his challenge before the 13th hour is up. The only difference now is that, unlike earlier in the film, Sarah is able to see past his manipulative tactics. She has unveiled how he's been controlling her, and she's no longer falling for it. He has no power over her. Labyrinth, at its core, is a movie about coming to terms with growing up. It is a fantasy film, yes, an adventure film, but at its heart, it's a film about a teenage girl trying to figure out who she is and what she wants, which is an incredibly confusing time in her life. She wants to be an adult, but also not yet. The Sarah in the beginning of the film thinks of age as a binary between child and adult. Sarah by the end of the film is starting to understand age more as a journey. She takes down some of her drawings, puts away some of her toys, passes on her beloved teddy bear to her baby brother. She doesn't let go of her childhood fully just yet, which is shown through her friends from the Labyrinth showing up in her room at the very end, but she also stops hanging on to her childhood as much. She no longer wants to grow up, but she has accepted that she is growing up, and decided that this fact will not hold power over her. She's going to do this at her pace, in her way, not in the way of anybody else. Just as she solved the Labyrinth in her way and not Hoggle's or Jareth's or Didymus's way. So, what can we conclude then? What am I trying to say with this? I guess I'm trying to say that too many artists, Imagineers, writers, musicians, directors, actors and more pour themselves into the films they make for us to just assume that every film will be the exact same. Just because we are used to a trope being popular, we shouldn't apply it to every piece of media we consume, because not every piece of media is going to adhere to the tropes that we expect. And so long as we are looking with a magnifying glass for the tropes we are expecting, we're going to miss the actual meaning of the media we're watching. Especially with an actor or celebrity that is already considered attractive, we expect them to be framed as sexual and attractive in a romantic lead way. So when that sexuality of the character is written as part of their danger, we look past that. We just automatically assume that a man has to be an object of romantic attraction for the female character in the same media. It can be said that, societally, we should rethink how many relationships that are presented to us as romantic and goals in media are actually just a net of manipulation, control, and lies, to the point that now we see a vaguely threatening, attractive man and in our mind make the false connection that this man has to be a romantic love interest. Even if, like in the case of Labyrinth, the film itself does not present the character as such, its audience assumes that he is, because that's what they've grown to expect. It's what they've grown to take for granted.